everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and we're here today for Friday Classics, and we are going to be talking about Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. So let's get started. Good evening everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I prattle on about the books that I have read. As I said in the intro, we are talking all things Oliver Twist. This is my first time reading it, and I must say I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great read. I gave it 4 stars, which is really good. You know, that's not too bad, although I have been rating my classics pretty high because I've been enjoying them so much. But anyway, we all have heard about Oliver Twist. I'm sure we've all heard of Oliver Twist. If you haven't heard of the book, you've definitely heard of the TV show with the famous line, "Please sir, can I have some more?" So this book is following the story of Oliver Twist, who was born into poverty. At the time of his birth, his mother died. We don't actually ever find out the name of his mother, and he is then rendered an orphan, and so he goes into a orphanage for young boys, and he's with children around his own age, and he stays there until he's about 9 years old, at which time then he is transferred over to the workhouse. Now the workhouse is a place that no one wants to go, no one wants to be a part of or anything like that, because they would much rather die or stay on the street than actually go to the workhouse. It's a cruel place that people have worked very hard, and yeah, so no one ever wants to go there, but unfortunately Oliver finds himself there because he's got nowhere else to go. And so some boys give him a hard time to go and ask for more gruel, and he steps up and asks Mr. Bumble for some more gruel, and that's where the famous line comes in, "Please sir, can I have some more?" And so basically the story follows on from there, and Mr. Bumble then offers £5 for anybody to come and take Oliver Twist off their hand, because Mr. Bumble sees him as not a very good of character. He looks down his nose at him, as he does to most of the lads that are in the workhouse and all that sort of stuff. So he's not off to a very good start in the book. And then I believe he was an undertaker, a very cruel and unusual man, was almost had his hands on Oliver, but at the last minute it didn't happen. And he then proceeded to, after making friends with a couple of boys his own age and whatnot, he then proceeded to take it upon himself to run away, and he ran away to London. And when he got to London, he met a young lad named Jack Dawkins, and he is the artful dodger, and also Charlie Bates, I think is his name, is the other young lad. But he meets Jack first, and Jack takes him to a place where he resides, and there is an elderly gentleman there. I got the impression that he was elderly. Gentleman there named Fagin, and now Fagin runs a ring of pickpocketers, and they're all young children or young girls, young boys. And this is where he meets Charlie Bates, and he also meets a few other characters there. And then Fagin decides to send Oliver out with the Artful Dodger and also Charlie Bates. And so Oliver is watching from across the road as they pickpocket, a handkerchief from Mr. Brownlow. Terrible with names. So far I'm doing all right, I think. From Mr. Brownlow, and and he is quite shocked by this, and so he runs off. And because he ran at the same time as the other 2 boys did, they ran and went around the corner. The gentleman seen Oliver running away and naturally assumed that he was the pickpocket. So they chased him down, caught him, and then they took him to the police station, and basically he pitched a fit, so to speak, and they said that he had like brain fever and whatnot. Mr. Brownlow felt a little bit sorry for him, so agreed to take him back to his own house and look after him. So his housekeeper and him were looking after him and nursing him back to health. He got back into health. They dressed him in fine clothes. But Mr. Brownlow actually noticed on his wall, he had a portrait, and he notices some resemblance to Oliver. And so they didn't really think much of it. And then basically they are just getting along, and he's starting to fit in, and he's starting to really fit into the house. And it looks like that it's going to work out really well for him. Then in comes Mr. Brownlow's friend, who I cannot remember his name at the moment, and basically kept saying that he was no good and he's going to end up ripping you off and all this sort of stuff. So to put him to the test, they gave him a lot of books to take back to the bookstore or the library, and and then they were both sitting at the table as Oliver left, and he was entrusted with some money. I think it was £5 from memory, and basically he did not get very far because the evil character Bill Sykes and his lovely assistant Nancy found Oliver as he was walking to the bookstore, and they snatched him up and took him back to Fagin, and they held him captive there for quite some time. So Mr. Brownlow was quite disappointed and didn't know what happened to him, and just assumed that he had gone back to life of crime. And so basically, Fagin essentially held him prisoner and wouldn't let him go or anything like that. Eventually, they were going to try and lay into him. And Nancy is a character in this book that I feel like, had she had a different life, she would have been such a caring person. Like, even though she was in a life of crime, and I believe she's a prostitute, lady of the night, whatever you want to call them. And so basically she had been in that life because of Fagin and Bill Sykes. And when they were going to lay into Oliver, she stepped up and went off ahead at him, and basically got hysterical and wouldn't let them touch her, and she was trying to protect him. So throughout the story, she's trying to protect Oliver pretty much all the way from Bill and Fagin, because she feels like that she was sucked into the life of crime and then trapped there and couldn't get out, and she didn't want that for Oliver. And so there's all that happening there, but then you've got Fagin and Bill Sykes wanting to use Oliver, but then there's also an underlying story going on. There is a stranger that is asking questions about Oliver and all that sort of stuff. But I found that after he ends up in London and he's back there with them, I found that the Oliver character became took a little bit of a back seat, and then it more focused on Fagin, Bill Sykes, Nancy, and this other person who I don't want to talk about, because if you haven't read it, it will actually give it away, and I don't want to do that. And it started to focus more on them and their lifestyle and how they were in it, and why they were, like, not so much why they were in it or why they were so cruel and whatnot, but it was just sort of showing their mentality and what they were really like. Bill Sykes is just a horrendous character. Like, I did not like him at all. He got his comeuppance, I believe, in the end. Fagin, on the other hand, I think had he had another life, he may have been a different person altogether. But in this one, he was a very conniving and sneaky and underhanded character. And Nancy, I didn't like her very much, but at the same time felt very sorry for her, because really she had no option. Born into poverty, living a poverty-stricken life, and also a life of a criminal is not much life at all. But I did like the fact that she tried to redeem herself by helping Oliver, and so it has got a lot going on in it, around the workhouse as well, and the class and all that sort of stuff, as Charles Dickens often does write about that sort of stuff, from what I've read so far, which is 2 novels. There's a lot of social commentary and stuff like that, and just how people look down upon people that can't support themselves, through whatever circumstance that found themselves that way. Like, really, Oliver's life isn't his fault. His mum passed away during childbirth, but there was no one else there. But that's all I'm really going to say about the book. Like, I think for sure I will probably read this again. I've made some notes and whatnot. I really love the way that Charles Dickens describes a scene, and You know, like I've said this before, especially about the Christmas Carol, like when he describes something, he describes it so well that you can almost feel like you could reach out and touch the character. And that's sort of how I felt with this book as well. Like I felt like I knew these people that were in here especially by the time I got to the end of the book. And as I said, like I felt like Oliver was taking a little bit of a back seat to these really deplorable characters that were in this book. It was a wonderful read. If you haven't read Oliver Twist, I'd pick it up, give it a go. It's got a fair chunk of pages in it. We have in this particular edition, which is cover to cover, we have 527 pages in this one, but it was a pretty quick read as well. Again, I do listen to my classics on audio as I'm reading along, so I can take notes and understand the language a little bit more and understand what the author's trying to portray in the book. But that is it from me today. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment down below. Have you read Oliver Twist yet? And if so, what did you think of the book? And as always, keep turning those pages, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.